Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been an ongoing franchise since 1998 and has evolved from a dark manga about a lonely teenage boy who likes board games to one of the most successful trading card games ever released. One of the most diverse ways to enjoy this franchise, however, comes in the form of video games, which have varied mechanics, stories, and way to ogle cool monster designs. So let's take a walk through different kinds of games that exist throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's 20-year history, going from 1998 all the way through to 2021. And let's see exactly how we got here. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 3 Try Holy God Advent, try attacking and dethroning that, teenagers, was released in Japan on July 13th, 2000, but was released in Western territories as Dark Duel Stories on March 18th, 2002. I'm sure Dark Duel Stories was an easier name to sell to a ratings board than a Try Holy God Advent. This game continues the established formula of the previous Duel Monsters title, which shares the Dark Duel Stories subtitle, and expands upon it in a few key ways. Additionally, we would see the continuation of the Street Duel tournaments for this title in Japan, continuing the tradition from the previous Duel Monsters entries. Also, yes, this is the one from the meme from Florida. The Japanese release had promotional cards just the same as the other games, and the cards you could receive came from a pool of 10 cards, which were Sinister Serpent, Widespread Ruin, Goblin Fan, Garma Sword Oath, Alpha and Beta the Magnet Warriors, Insect Queen, and Cybertech Alligator. Insect Queen came from early release copies of the game, as far as I could tell. The English release, however, had a much more interesting promo card release. The most widespread release contains the cards Salamandra, Acid Trap Hole, and Sayaryu. But the first wave of Dark Duel Stories releases included different promotional cards, which were Dark Magician, Blue Eyes White Dragon, and Exodia the Forbidden One. This release was extremely limited, so these cards in particular have attained a significant price tag over the years. This, like all other Duel Monsters games, had 2 guides released with various information on card drops, strategy, and of course, some promotional cards. This time, the cards were Panther Warrior in Game Guide 1, and in Game Guide 2, you could find yourself a copy of Time Machine by H.G. Wells. In Dark Duel Stories, we see a number of changes to the formula to make the game more complex. Although many aspects will be familiar, we do see now that the monsters both have a level and require tributes. After a long last, you can no longer just fill your deck with summoned skulls and Garuzis. Sometimes you have to play like a Uraby or something, or an Axe Raider. We see the return of deck cost, and with the inclusion of tribute summoning based on level, is now more balanced to reward strategic deck building. Not to mention the inclusion of several new spell and trap cards, and giving each monster 2 types to belong to on its affinity chart for battling. The chart is identical to the one presented in Duel Monsters 2, but fusions have been reworked to be more expansive like they are in Forbidden Memories. Although monsters created through fusion now have summoning sickness, which is of course a Magic the Gathering term, but it makes this game more in line with the anime, where fused monsters abide by those same rules. There is apparently an unused purple coloring for cards in the card view, which can be found through debug. So maybe cards were at one point going to be properly fused with polymerization or something, who knows? Additionally, this is the first instance of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards having effects. Some monsters that have effects in this game don't have effects in the OCG TCG, and sometimes the opposite is true. These effects are also much different than in the paper game. Nemoriko, for instance, can put all monsters on the field to sleep for a full turn, meaning you and your opponent cannot attack or change battle positions with any monsters on the field at the time. Also, these effects are all once per duel. Time Wizard, as a fun aside, has an effect, but all it does is change a baby dragon on your field into a Thousand Dragon, even though these monsters still fuse on the field just like they always have. Time Wizard can also fire this effect without baby dragon on the field, and it just whiffs. Imagine if this was real. How incredible. Firing effects without legal targets. Just truly inspiring stuff. We also see a new mechanic called Card Construction, which allows you to fuse monster parts together, one after each duel in the construction menu. These monster parts consist of a top half and a bottom half, and are aesthetically copy-pasted onto each other, much like Pokemon Sword and Shield fossil pokes. Monster cards created here are not actual monster cards ever printed in the paper game. They are just used for this video game here. Which is probably for the best, as some of these monster fusions are flat out useless, and some of them are so overwhelmingly powerful that they would immediately power creep several monsters you already have to win through duels or get through passwords. Speaking of passwords, you no longer have to pay 50 deck points in order to get a card added by password. You are just limited to 1 copy of each card per password used. You can also use a password to unlock Stage 5 Duelists as mentioned before. Plus, you can use a password to find Grandpa. Upon finding Grandpa, he will appear after each duel along with Taya. He purports to give you a card, but he really just wants to give you a 99th copy of Garma Sword Oath. Akin to the other Duel Monsters titles, Tri-Holy God Advent also saw some level of competitive play in the great nation of Japan. The Street Duel Tournament Legend of Power was announced with the promise of a prize card in the form of Dark Magician Girl for players who can make it to the top 7 of the tournament. A strange top cut, to be sure. Additionally, you could get yourself a copy via lottery at all of these various tournament settings that occurred. There wasn't a culmination tournament as far as I could tell, so this game lived and died on the streets like some kind of card game thug. The story for this game is loosely set in Duel City, or Battle City if you're from the Western Territories, arc in the manga and anime, featuring that season's character designs and new villains such as Arcana and Seeker. Fun fact, in the English translation, Seeker refers to himself as part of the Ghouls, which is what they are called in Japanese, but the 4Kids dub would change this name to the Rare Hunters. This likely happened because the show had not reached that stage of production, so there weren't really any notes about what to change the group's name to yet. There are several final boss duelists in Stage 5, just like in Duel Monsters 2, but each one can be changed by a password rather than random chance. There are several returning faces, such as fan favorite and true staple to the franchise, Simon Mirren, but we also add Hai Shin, who's been translated here as Sly Sheen, and also Nightmare and Dark Knight, who are the final bosses from Forbidden Memories. On top of the Ghoul Duelists, we also add a new face to the final boss ring, Merrick Ishtar, one of the most iconic villains in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, short of maybe Maximilian Pegasus. Dark Duel Stories moves us an inch closer to simulating the actual real-life game of Yu-Gi-Oh! With the inclusion of tribute summoning and effect monsters. This game was the first introduction to Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games for US gamers, but they would also be receiving Forbidden Memories in the not-too-distant future. What comes next? Well, you'll just have to stick around for the next one. See you next time.